code execution vulnerabilities. These type of vulnerabilities allow us to execute operating system code on the target server. So if the target server uses Windows, we'll be able to execute Windows commands. If it uses Linux, then we'll be able to use Linux commands. Clearly, this is a really critical problem that would allow us to do anything we want with the target, really. We can upload a PHP shell using a wget command, or upload a payload, a virus, anything we want using the wget Linux command. You just need to make sure that you're uploading it to a file or to a directory which you're allowed to write stuff to. Another way of exploiting this vulnerability is to just run OS commands and get a reverse shell based on these commands. So because we can run operating system commands, we can use the programming languages supported by that operating system to try and get a reverse connection on our computer. So first of all, let's just assume that we're browsing here and we're going around, and then we got to a tab in the website where it allows you to, for example, do a ping. Now, what you should do is you should always try to experiment with any input box you see. Try to see what that input box does and what can you inject into it. What can you do to get stuff running? So, for example, this input box is telling you it's going to do a ping. And if you put an IP, for example, I'm going to put 10.20.14.203, which is my own IP, just to use it as a normal person. And I'm going to do a submit. And it's going to go ahead and ping it for me and give me the ping results. So what looks like here, it's actually executing the ping command in Linux systems. Now, let's see if we can exploit that. If it's actually executing the ping command. So what it's doing is, it's going and it's doing, so we're sending 10.20.14.203 as the ping, and then it's going to the web server, and the web server is doing ping 10.20.14.203. So let's see if we can exploit this. How would we exploit it if it's taking what we're inputting right here and then it's doing ping that? Now, in Linux and Unix based commands, you can use this sign to execute multiple commands on one line. So if you do this, if for example in your own terminal, so I'm just going to go to my terminal here and I'm just going to do ls, which is the list command, and then pwd is what shows your working directory. So if I do an ls followed by this sign and then do pwd, it'll execute both commands. So it'll do this and then it'll show where the working directory is. So we can do the same thing with this and see if it works for us. So we're going to put an IP, a right IP, and then I'm just going to do pwd and see if it'll execute the pwd for me. If it does, then this is a code execution vulnerability and I can execute anything I want on the server. So let's see what's going to happen. I pasted this and I'm going to hit submit. And as we can see, we got the ping results, but at the end we got our current working directory. So it's var www dvwa vulnerabilities and exec. So it executed the pwd that I inserted, and that means I can insert any commands I want in there and they'll be executed. So I've inserted a resources file that you can use to get reverse connection from the target computer. Now there's a number of ways, a number of commands that would give you a reverse connection. All of these commands depend on the programming language. So for example, we have commands in PHP, we have commands in Ruby, you have Perl commands, and we have the one for Bash. Bash is the Linux shell command language. So all Unix operating systems will be able to execute Bash commands. So that's a very good way of doing it. So most Unix system, this command should work on most Unix-based systems. So this would be a really good way of doing it. Again, most of them would have Python, so Python would be a good way. Netcat, most of them do have Netcat as well, so Netcat is a good way of doing that. And we're actually going to use Netcat in this video. So what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to listen for connections, just like we used to do with Metasploit when we used to do multi-handler. You can actually use a multi-handler for this and listen for connections, but I'm just going to keep it simpler and show you a new way. And I'm going to use Netcat. So Netcat. Netcat is just a tool that allows you to listen and connect computers together. So I'm going to listen on port 8080. So Netcat is the program. VV is just to see verbose output, so we can see a lot of output. Anything goes wrong, we can see it. And we're telling it to listen using the L option on port 8080. So I'm going to hit enter, and that's saying it's just listening on port 8080. That's all it's going to do. The next command we're going to do is we're going to try to connect from the web server back to my computer using netcat as well. So we're assuming the web server has netcat. We're going to try it and see if that works. So the command is very simple. It's netcat, and we're telling it to use the bin bash, and we're giving it the IP of my device, my attacker device, which is 10.20.14, and then the port, which is 8080, which is we're listening on right here. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm just going to execute it the same way we used to execute the pwd command. So the last thing we did was 10, 20, 14 to 03, and then we did pwd. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to remove the pwd and paste the code that we just created, which will try to connect from the web server back to the Kali machine to the attacker machine. And I'm going to come here, and as you can see, we got a connection back from to us from 10, 20, 14 to 04. So that's the target computer. And if we do a pwd, you'll see that we have a reverse shell. If we do an ls, if we do an id, you'll see that we're www data. And if we do a uname a, just to confirm that I'm in the metasploitable, and you can see that I'm in the metasploitable, and I'm able to run any command that I want on the target computer. So basically I have full access to the target computer.